Imagine two neighbors. One is a college dropout who works at a gas station, never made more than 30,000 rupees a month, and never talked about stocks or markets. The other is an Ivy League MBA, a hotshot investment banker who understands complex financial models, market cycles, and insider economics. But here's the twist. The first man retires a multimillionaire. The second goes bankrupt. How? Why do people who seem smart on paper make terrible money decisions, while others with no financial education quietly build wealth over time? Money doesn't follow logic, it follows psychology. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, millions of people who had fancy spreadsheets, degrees from top schools, and access to all the data still lost everything. And on the other side of the spectrum, there were janitors, truck drivers, and retirees who were completely unaffected. Their portfolios stayed strong, or better, they grew. This isn't a story of knowledge, it's a story of behavior. It's not about how much you know, it's about how you act when it comes to money. That's the uncomfortable truth. If money was only about math, we'd all be rich. But it's about emotions. Fear, greed, ego, envy, insecurity, hope. All invisible, all powerful. That's what makes Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money such a landmark book. It doesn't teach you how to beat the stock market. It teaches you how not to lose to yourself. Morgan Housel, a former columnist at The Motley Fool and The Wall Street Journal, noticed something shocking after years of studying finance. People's success with money has very little to do with their intelligence and everything to do with their behavior. You don't need to be a genius to get wealthy, but you do need to be calm, patient, and emotionally intelligent. The Psychology of Money is not a get-rich-quick manual. It's a deep, honest, almost philosophical look at how humans think about wealth, investing, saving, and happiness. Each chapter is built around a powerful story or idea that explores a mental model or money bias that drives people's decisions, often subconsciously. Housel's genius lies in how he breaks down huge truths using simple words and relatable stories. He doesn't complicate things. He exposes how simplicity, patience, and humility are the real paths to wealth. This summary will take you through the core lessons of the book, chapter by chapter, in a way that will not just inform you, but transform the way you think about money. You'll discover why getting rich and staying rich are two different skills, why compounding is a miracle almost no one respects, why luck and risk are two sides of the same coin, why your personal history shapes your financial decisions more than facts, and most importantly, how to build a life where money becomes a tool, not a trap. Let's begin. Chapter 1. No one's crazy. Everyone has their own money story. Imagine someone who grew up in post-World War II America. They saw booming economic growth, falling interest rates, and soaring stock markets. Investing in equities seemed like a no-brainer. Now imagine someone who grew up in 1990s Russia, during a period of hyperinflation, corrupt privatization, and total collapse of the banking system. That person may never trust banks or markets again. Same world, completely different behaviors. Housel argues that people's views on money are shaped not by objective facts, but by their own life experiences. When were you born? What kind of economy did you grow up in? Did your parents talk about money? Did they fight over it? Did you see them lose everything or slowly build wealth? All these things shape your financial mindset, often without you realizing it. That's why some people love risk and others fear it. Why some people hoard cash and others go all in on crypto. It's not about logic, it's about lived experience. It's why personal finance is personal. No two people live the same money story. This idea is powerful because it removes judgment. It helps us understand why people make decisions that seem stupid to us but feel rational to them. Once we understand that, we become more empathetic and, more importantly, we become more aware of our own blind spots. You're not crazy, but you might be biased, and so is everyone else. Chapter 2, Luck and Risk. Success is never fully earned, failure is never fully deserved. Bill Gates is a billionaire genius, but did you know he was one of the only kids in the entire United States to have access to a computer terminal in his high school during the 1970s? His school, Lakeside School in Seattle, had a rare deal with the University of Washington. There were only a handful of schools in the world with that setup. Gates himself admits that had he been born a few years earlier or gone to a different school, Microsoft might never have happened. That's luck. Now imagine another brilliant coder born around the same time. Someone with equal intelligence and drive, but without Gates's access to that early computer. They never became famous. They never became rich. That's not failure. That's lack of exposure. That's risk. Housel says we overemphasize personal effort in success stories and underestimate the role of timing, luck, randomness, and environment. At the same time, we shame people for financial failure without recognizing how many variables were out of their control. Of course, effort matters, but outcomes are a combination of skill and luck. And when you judge someone's money decisions or your own, it's important to remember this balance. The key takeaway? Be careful who you praise, be careful who you look down on, and never take full credit or blame for your outcomes. That attitude builds humility, which is essential to long-term wealth. Chapter 3. Never Enough, the dangerous game of comparison.
Imagine earning 50 lakh ton a year and still feeling poor. Sounds ridiculous, right? But it's not uncommon. Because in the age of social media, you're not comparing yourself to your old self, you're comparing yourself to someone richer, cooler, and more successful.
Every single day.
Morgan tells the story of Rajat Gupta, a man who went from poverty to becoming the CEO of McKinsey, a board member at Goldman Sachs, and a financial legend. But that wasn't enough. He got involved in insider trading, chasing even more money, and ended up in prison. Why? Because there was always someone richer, someone with a private jet, someone with more. That's the danger of never enough. When money becomes a scorecard, you'll always lose, because there's no finish line. Housel explains that enough is not about a number. It's about attitude. It's about deciding what truly matters to you and not letting envy drive your decisions. Wealth, at its core, is the ability to say no, to walk away, to not care what others think. But to reach that place, you must define your version of enough and protect it from the poison of comparison.
Chapter 4. Confounding Compounding, the hidden power of time. Warren Buffett is one of the richest men on earth, but what most people miss is how he got that rich. Buffett began investing at age 10 and kept going into his 90s. Most of his net worth, more than $80 billion, came after he turned 65. Not because he found some secret investment strategy, but because he stayed consistent and let compounding do its magic over time. Compounding is the single most powerful force in finance and in life, but it's also the least appreciated. Why? Because it's invisible in the short term and massive in the long term. It's boring before it's beautiful. Most people interrupt compounding because they expect fast results. They change strategies. They panic during market dips. They cash out to fund lifestyle inflation. And in doing so, they destroy the very thing that could have made them rich. Housel compares compounding to planting a tree. You water it every day, but it looks the same for a while. Then one day, it explodes with growth. But you can't cheat time. The secret is to stay in the game long enough for the magic to happen. Chapter 5. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. Two different skills. There's a difference between being rich and staying rich. Getting wealthy often requires risk, optimism, and boldness. Staying wealthy requires humility, frugality, and paranoia. Many people understand the first half, few master the second. Think about all the lottery winners, startup founders, or sports stars who made millions and went broke. It's not because they didn't know how to earn, it's because they didn't know how to keep. Housel says the 3 keys to staying wealthy are a sense of enough, a deep respect for luck and risk, and a strong ability to avoid ruin. It's not sexy advice. It won't make headlines, but that's why it works. The goal is not to maximize returns at all costs. The goal is to survive, to stay in the game, to let compounding do its job. In other words, don't be the hare, be the tortoise. And before. Chapter 6, Tales You Win, the power of a few big events. When you hear about successful investments, like someone who bought Apple stock at $1 or Bitcoin at $200, it's tempting to think they knew exactly what they were doing. But the truth is, most huge financial outcomes come from a small number of bets that work out really well, while most others fail or barely break even. These rare, high-impact events are called tail events. outcomes that are statistically unlikely but incredibly powerful. In the stock market, most gains come from just a handful of companies. In venture capital, 1 in 10 startups might make it big, while the rest collapse. Even Warren Buffett has said that most of his success came from fewer than 10 investments. This idea changes everything. Morgan Housel explains that tail events aren't just rare, they're essential. They drive progress, build fortunes, and create outsized impact. The trick isn't avoiding failure, but staying in the game long enough for a tail event to eventually land in your favor. Most people quit too early, give up after one loss, or chase perfect predictability, missing out on the wild but life-changing upside of tail results. This lesson applies beyond money. Careers, relationships, health. Progress often hinges on a few bold moves, lucky breaks, or big wins. Don't judge your entire strategy based on average outcomes. Respect the power of the rare, and position yourself to catch them when they come. Chapter 7. Freedom, the ultimate form of wealth. What's the point of money if it doesn't make your life better? For most people, the real reason they want wealth isn't cars, watches, or luxury homes. It's control over their time. Housel argues that the highest dividend money pays is the ability to wake up and do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want, for as long as you want. That's freedom, and it's priceless. In a world where people chase status symbols, it's easy to forget that the richest people are often the ones who quietly walk away from meetings, skip rush hour, or take time off to be with their families. They don't brag, they're not on the cover of magazines, but they've won the real game. The one where time is your currency and autonomy is your reward. This chapter is a gentle wake-up call. If your pursuit of money is taking away your freedom, if you're working jobs you hate, compromising your health, or spending years in stress just to afford things that don't bring lasting joy, then maybe you're not building wealth. You're building a trap. Money is a tool. Use it to buy time. Use it to live on your terms. Chapter 8. Man in the Car Paradox, what people really admire. Imagine someone driving a Lamborghini through the streets of Mumbai. Most onlookers don't say, "Wow, that guy must be amazing." Instead, they say, "Wow, I want that car." Nobody is admiring the driver. They're imagining themselves in his place. This is the man in the car paradox. Housel explains that when people chase luxury items to gain respect or admiration, they often fail. Because those symbols don't make people admire you, they make people admire the object. And in most cases, people don't even notice you. They project their own dreams onto the lifestyle. This paradox highlights a deep truth about ego and money. We assume expensive things will make people think highly of us, but admiration doesn't work that way. People respect humility, kindness, and competence far more than flashy displays of wealth. And yet, billions are spent every year on trying to impress others, without realizing that nobody's really paying attention. The irony? The most respected people are often those who don't care about being respected. They just live honestly, help others, and build something meaningful. That's the ultimate flex. Chapter 9. Wealth is what you don't see. The invisible asset. You see someone wearing designer shoes, driving a Mercedes, posting pictures from Bali. You assume they're rich, but you don't see their bank account, their credit card bills, or how much debt they're carrying. What you're seeing is spending, not wealth. Housel defines wealth as what you don't see, the money not spent, the investments not shown off, the quiet savings compounding in the background. True wealth is invisible. It's silent. It's built through restraint, not display. This idea is revolutionary in a world obsessed with appearances. Many people go broke trying to look rich. They sacrifice long-term security for short-term admiration. But real wealth, the kind that gives you freedom and peace, often looks boring. It looks like driving an old car when you can afford a new one. It looks like skipping the luxury watch and putting that 5 lakhs rupees into an index fund. The takeaway? Don't judge wealth by what you see. And don't try to display it. Let your money grow silently. Let your freedom speak louder than your lifestyle. Chapter 10. Save money, the most powerful money skill. You don't need to earn crores to build wealth. What you need is the habit of saving, consistently, quietly, and with purpose. Housel emphasizes that savings are not just the leftover after spending. They are the foundation of wealth. They give you options, flexibility, and confidence. Most people obsess over investing strategies, but if you don't save, it doesn't matter how good your returns are. If your income increases but your expenses increase faster, you're running in place. Real wealth comes from the gap between what you earn and what you keep. And here's the best part. Saving money doesn't require intelligence, education, or market timing. It just requires discipline and clarity. Saving is 100% in your control. It's not subject to stock prices or economic cycles. Housel also points out that savings give you the ability to say no to bad jobs, toxic relationships, or desperate decisions. A strong savings cushion is like a shield. It protects your future, fuels your goals, and buys your independence. Forget how flashy your investments are. Ask yourself, are you saving enough to create freedom? Chapter 11. Reasonable Rational. Why you don't need to be a genius. When it comes to money, we often hear advice like, be rational, use logic, or do what the numbers say. But Morgan Housel introduces a powerful idea. You don't need to be perfectly rational with money, you just need to be reasonable. The difference is subtle but life-changing. A rational person might choose the investment with the highest return on paper, even if it gives them sleepless nights. A reasonable person will choose the one they can live with, emotionally, psychologically, and consistently. The rational choice might say, never pay off your low-interest mortgage early. The reasonable choice might be, I want peace of mind, so I'll pay it off anyway. Money is emotional. It's connected to our fears, dreams, childhood memories, and even our sense of identity. That's why pure logic doesn't always work. You have to create a system that makes sense to you, even if it's not mathematically perfect. If you can stick with it in good times and bad, that's better than chasing the best strategy and quitting halfway through. In a world obsessed with optimization, this chapter reminds us to prioritize sustainability. The best financial plan is not the smartest one. It's the one you'll actually follow. Chapter 12. Surprise. History is less predictable than we think. Financial experts love to use history to predict the future. They say, here's what markets have done over the past 100 years, so here's what they'll do next. But Morgan Housel challenges this idea. He says history is not a map. It's a messy, surprising, and constantly changing story. Most of what moves the world, wars, pandemics, technology shifts, political revolutions, are surprises no one saw coming. Take 9/11, the COVID-19 pandemic, the invention of the internet, or the 2008 financial crash. These weren't predicted in textbooks, and yet they reshaped the economy in ways that no historical model could capture. That's the problem with relying too much on past data. It prepares you for a world that no longer exists. This chapter urges humility. Instead of assuming we know what's coming, we should build flexibility into our plans. Expect change, expect weirdness, expect the unexpected. History can teach us about human behavior, fear, greed, cycles of optimism and panic, but it can't give us a crystal ball. The smartest investors aren't the ones who predict perfectly. They're the ones who adapt quickly. Chapter 13. Room for error. The margin that saves you. Imagine walking on a tightrope without a safety net. One gust of wind, one wrong step, and you're done. That's how many people approach money. They live on the edge. All their income is spent. All their investments are aggressive. There's no room for error. Housel explains that a key ingredient in every successful financial plan is a buffer, a margin of safety. That means having more cash than you need, underestimating returns, preparing for things to go wrong. It means building in space for error, because life never goes exactly as planned. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. The world is unpredictable. Jobs are lost, markets crash, health changes, and when that happens, the people who survive aren't the ones with the fanciest strategy. They're the ones who had backup plans. The best part? You don't need to maximize every rupee. You just need to avoid ruin. Financial success is often about staying in the game long enough to let your smart decisions play out. A 90% optimal plan that survives is better than a 100% plan that crashes at the first shock. Build a cushion. Give yourself space. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Chapter 14, You'll Change. While your goals aren't final, think back to what you wanted 10 years ago. Is it still the same today? Probably not. Housel points out that most people's financial goals, dreams, and definitions of success evolve over time. But we forget that. We plan our whole lives, careers, investments, savings, based on the assumption that we'll always want the same things. That's rarely true. This matters because locking yourself into rigid financial commitments can make you feel trapped later. Maybe you bought a massive house you thought you'd love forever, but now you want freedom, not maintenance. Maybe you built a career for prestige, but now you crave purpose. The danger is in tying your identity to a version of yourself that no longer exists. This chapter encourages self-awareness and flexibility. It's okay to change. It's okay to redefine what enough means. The trick is to build plans that can evolve, to leave space for future you to make different choices without guilt or financial ruin. You're allowed to change your mind, and the smartest financial strategy is one that allows you to grow. Chapter 15. Nothing's free. Everything has a price, you just might not see it. In most stores, prices are clearly labeled. You know exactly what you're paying. But in the world of money, many costs are invisible. The stock market might look like a place to get rich, but the price you pay is volatility, uncertainty, and the mental discomfort of seeing your portfolio drop 30% overnight. Most people want high returns with no risk, fast growth with no sacrifice. But that's not how money works. Every reward has a price, and often it's not paid in rupees. It's paid in emotional pain, stress, and patience. Housel argues that if you want to succeed financially, you have to accept these hidden costs. Don't complain when the market crashes. That's the price of entry. Don't panic when your investments underperform. That's the fee for long-term wealth. If you can embrace the cost instead of resenting it, you'll become a better investor and a calmer person. Think of it like buying a ticket to a roller coaster. The ups and downs are part of the ride. If you try to avoid all discomfort, you'll never get on, and you'll miss the thrill. Chapter 16. You and Me. Why we shouldn't copy others' strategies. Imagine two people. One is a 21-year-old crypto trader trying to flip tokens for a fast buck. The other is a 55-year-old father planning for retirement. They both read the same financial news. They both watch the same market charts, but they play very different games. Morgan Housel explains that one of the biggest mistakes in finance is assuming everyone is playing the same game, when in fact, they're not. Investors have different goals, time horizons, and risk appetites. What makes sense for a day trader might be disastrous for a long-term investor. What works for a billionaire might ruin a middle-class family. We often mimic others' strategies without asking, what game are they playing? Are they trying to make quick gains or preserve wealth? Are they betting with house money or their life savings? Their moves make sense for them, not necessarily for us. This chapter is a reminder to define your own game. Know your goals, stick to your rules, ignore the noise. The moment you start reacting to everyone else's moves, you stop playing your own hand. And that's how you lose. Chapter 17. The Seduction of Pessimism. Why bad news sounds smarter. Imagine someone says, the market will crash. Now imagine someone else says, the economy will grow steadily for the next 10 years. Who sounds smarter? Usually, it's the pessimist. There's something about fear that grabs attention. It feels cautious, analytical, and serious. Optimism? It often sounds naive, but Morgan Housel warns. Pessimism might sound smart, but optimism is what drives the world forward. The history of humanity is a story of progress, messy, uneven, and painful at times, but overwhelmingly upward. Technology advances, standards of living improve, markets recover, and yet, people obsess over every dip, every crash, every crisis, thinking it's the end. Why? Because losses hurt more than gains feel good. It's evolutionary. Our brains are wired to avoid pain, so we react more strongly to negative news. But that emotional reaction distorts our judgment. It makes us forget that most setbacks are temporary, and that compounding growth is slow, quiet, and easy to ignore. This chapter is an invitation to be rationally optimistic, not blindly hopeful, but historically grounded. The world breaks, heals, and rises again. Bet on that pattern. Chapter 18, When You'll Believe Anything. The Power of Stories Over Statistics. In 2008, the U.S. housing market collapsed. Experts gave detailed explanations: subprime mortgages, credit default swaps, and systemic risk. But for many people, the reason felt more emotional. They believed home prices would rise forever because they wanted to believe it. Housel shows how people don't base financial decisions on data alone. They base them on stories, internal narratives that help them make sense of the world. These stories are powerful. They're emotional, and they often override logic. Why do people invest in scams? Why do they hold losing stocks? Why do they buy things they can't afford? Not because the math checks out, but because the story feels true. This is my shot at freedom. This will make me rich. Everyone else is doing it. We crave meaning, not numbers. And that makes us vulnerable to confirmation bias, herd mentality, and self-deception. This chapter is a wake-up call. Before making any financial move, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself? Is it true, or is it just comforting? The key is not to eliminate stories. They're human. The key is to stay aware of them and not let them hijack your decisions. Chapter 19. All together now, building a wealthy mindset. After unpacking all the psychology, emotion, and history behind money, Housel brings the lessons together. He says there's no one-size-fits-all formula for financial success, but there are core principles that work across all backgrounds, incomes, and ages. These include saving consistently, living below your means, being patient, avoiding debt, staying humble, and embracing long-term thinking. He emphasizes that your goal should not just be to make money, but to keep it, grow it, and use it to improve your life. That requires emotional control, not just financial knowledge. In a world full of market predictions and flashy investment tips, the real advantage lies in temperament, in how you react to fear, in how you resist envy, in how you stay consistent when things get hard. This mindset isn't taught in schools, but it's the foundation of wealth. Chapter 20, Confessions, Morgan Housel's own strategy. In the final chapter, Housel shares something personal. He and his wife save a large percentage of their income, invest mostly in index funds, and keep no debt. Not because it's the perfect strategy, but because it lets them sleep at night. They value independence over returns, simplicity over sophistication, and freedom over status. He admits they could probably make more money with different strategies, but they don't care. They found what works for them. That's the message of the entire book. There's no perfect path, only the one that fits your values, personality, and goals. Wealth, in the end, is not about having more. It's about needing less, living with purpose, and staying true to yourself. Conclusion: money is a soft skill. After reading the entire book, one truth becomes crystal clear. Money is not a hard science. It's a soft skill. It's not about perfect formulas or mastering spreadsheets. It's about mastering yourself, your emotions, impulses, fears, and dreams. You don't need to predict the next market crash or know how to read technical charts. You don't need to follow the hottest stock picks or chase the latest trend. What you need is patience, clarity, self-awareness, and discipline. What you need is to know yourself deeply and build a financial life that reflects that truth. Morgan Housel doesn't give you rules, he gives you wisdom. And that's what makes this book a masterpiece. It doesn't tell you what to think, it teaches you how to think, and more importantly, how to behave. That's why The Psychology of Money is not just a personal finance book. It's a life book. Let's now reflect on the most timeless lessons that echo throughout its pages. So next time you think about money, remember, it's not about numbers, it's about behavior, it's about you. And that is The Psychology of Money. If you like this book summary, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and hit the bell icon so you never miss powerful, life-changing content like this.